Hey, gonna start this baby out with a huge shout out. Yeah, you heard that right. There is no H on the beginning of that. Huge to all the new listeners. I got an unbelievable amount of new listeners, which between that and everybody that takes their time, I know your time is extremely valuable in this space. This podcast space is crazy crowded. So just, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, and I'm just warmed up. I love you guys so much for giving me your time, for spitting at you. You want to hear what I have to say, and of course what my guests have to say. And what you're about to listen to is one of two different types of formats that I have within the show. It's a long version, 60 to 90 minutes, and this one's pretty cool because it's one of two parts, and I haven't done that before. This guest is a lot of fun. You'll get to hear about that here in a second. And then on opposite weeks, I do what's called B-Raw Bites, and it's 10 to 15 minutes long, just me going live on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram as well. It's whatever's on my heart and in my mind at the moment, so those topics just are completely random. And the feedback from those episodes has been great, and I just truly enjoy doing them. So check that out. And of course, everything you want to know about the show is over at my website, brawpodcast.com. Where to listen, sign up for the newsletter, merch, all that good stuff. I got some cool things coming down the line, so I'd love for you to connect there. And I grow this show organically, so if you get something out of it, makes you laugh, smile, pisses you off, it's all good to me, man. As long as you got some feeling going on, that's cool. Pass it along to a friend or seven. These shows are a lot of work. A good buddy of mine, Tommy Hilkin, he's the co-host of Inside the Album. It's an amazing podcast. They deep dive into classic rock and roll albums. So if you like that, the link is in the show notes. But he told me a phrase long time ago. He's been in show business his entire life. That's literally all he's known. He's been very successful. He's a great dude. If you break down show and biz to make show business, biz is such a much bigger part than a show. And so a lot goes into these. And if you could spread the word and grow this organically, I would love you for it. Write a review. Again, tell a friend or seven. 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. All or any of that is greatly appreciated. And of course, I can't get any further without hollering at the crews at the two companies that help keep this project motored down the road. I use both these products on the regular. First up is Live Resheet, high quality CBD product. I've been using it for almost a decade now, and it keeps I'm very demanding on my body physically, and it keeps my old joints and muscles pain-free while I get along. Chasing my 2-year-old around, that it helps a lot. And speaking of my 2-year-old, what keeps us going on all our adventures is my backpack from High Speed Daddy. I cannot say enough good about this company. You definitely got to check it out. And before I get any further, if you say, well, I don't have a kid, it doesn't matter. They got backpacks, lunch boxes, clothing, all sorts of good stuff, and customer service is top notch. Links are in the show notes, and make sure you give them hell for me while you're over there. And for everybody just joining, thanks again. But I always throw a quote in the beginning of each episode because I love a good quote. Who doesn't love a good quote? And I try to match up a little bit of what the episode is about because I have a stack of quotes over here and on my phone. Today's quote is from my man, Mark Twain. I love his stuff. He says, "Facts are stubborn, but statistics are more pliable." And I'm telling you, that couldn't be more fitting for today's episode with Jeremiah. This dude is an unbelievably talented photographer. His work is just crazy. So when we got together, he put a book together because he travels and takes photos, and that's kind of what the direction we were going to take talking. All right? Now, I know that my episodes go in a bunch of different directions, but today it was amazing because we took a fucking 180. I didn't know this dude was a professor and what he specialized in, and this guy has so much passion for his work. It's contagious. So I know you're going to love it. So this first episode, this is a part 1 of part 2, and we get talking about his profession, and then part 2 will be right after this, and that's about his traveling, his photography. But his story and his attitude around statistics, and when you read charts, and if somebody says, hey, these are the stats for this, his explanation around that is amazing. But as normal, I'm going to let him tell you all about it. Let's get to it. Woo! All right, let's get this show.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll get through it though. Dude, thanks again for reaching out, man.
Oh, absolutely.
You've been you've been living out of a suitcase, it looks like.
Yeah, we decided to resume travel back in May, and then I was on sabbatical in the spring. And I told my wife, it's been over 2 years. Let's just go nuts. So we did.
Yeah, I can see. I've been following you, dude. Just, I got to say right up front, man, your pictures are dude, they're phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I don't get into I know that you kind of get all breathy and geek out on the equipment and that kind of stuff, but I really enjoy, dude. I really enjoy your photos, dude. They're just not. Oh, they're just not like, they don't seem like a normal, like everyday photo. Somebody sees a bird or something, takes a picture of it, or they're like on a street corner and take a picture of the street. Just like the angles you take it from and stuff. Yeah, it's just, they're really cool, man. They're really cool. I just want to
years ago, before things like Google Image, I used to think, okay, half my photos need to be, documenting everything, and then the other half can be a little more artistic. But these days, you can Google Image pretty much anything. So I just felt, okay, in that case, I'm just going to focus on the more artistic. And I was very fortunate. The guy who got me into photography was really into like composition. So he taught me a lot of the basics, foreground, leading lines, things like that. And I just sort of ran with
it. We were watching, God, what the hell's the name of that show about? It was a movie about young Spielberg, how he got into the movies.
Oh yeah, the Fabelmans.
So the spoiler alert, but the end of the movie where, God, who was the guy that told him where to put the horizon? Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. So at the end, it was like some guy that he wanted to meet. And that's super old school directors. I don't know the history. So he finally gets to meet him, and he's a grumpy old man. And he's like, "Do you have anything for me?" And, "Get out of here, you young bastard." And he's like, and it's like he's leaving his office. He's like, "What do you see in these pictures?" No, it's been a while since I've seen it. And he starts rattling off stuff. He goes, "No, look at the fucking horizons. The horizons are always up or down. They're never in the middle. They're either on the top or the bottom or something like that." Right. So then he leaves and he's all happy because he got advice from this famous director.
Right.
And then the movie ends. And then in the middle of the ending scene, the horizon moves from the middle to the top.
Gotcha.
I started laughing and I nudged my wife. I go, "Fucking what's his name?" I couldn't remember your name, but at the time, because I was all excited, I go, "He'd get a kick out of that. I know he would get a kick out of that." But yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's very simple things. I mean, that comes from what's called the rule of thirds. And so it's like, the top third, bottom third, and same thing left and right. Things are more interesting when they're off center.
Yep. Even if it's a single person.
Exactly.
Yeah. When I had the video business, that was one of the first things I learned was the thirds, up, down, left, and right. Even if it's a single person talking, don't put them in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah. Just much more interesting.
Yeah. So where did you land first, dude?
We started back in Fiji. That was actually the first trip we had to cancel in 2020. We had a Fiji, New Zealand trip planned. And so I had to keep a spreadsheet of various travel credits. It was just crazy. So that one, so 2 years later, the flight credit was getting ready to expire. So I was like, okay, I better, let's just do Fiji. I stuck it in between my spring and summer sessions teaching. So that was just that was a funny one because I'm assuming Fiji Air is a really small company, because when it first happened, they sent an email out to say, flight had been canceled, but we're giving you a credit. It's good for a year. No need to call. Okay. And then that year was coming up. They sent out another email. We've extended your credit another year. All's good. No need to call. Okay. And then when I was getting ready to travel again, they sent an email out. "Oh, if you're ready to use your credit, just fill out this form. No need to call." So it's like the whole thing was done all through like email and internet forums, but it worked out. We got to Fiji, stayed at a really nice resort, and just did a few day trips and some local tour companies, and felt really good being back. So it's like, okay, let's resume this.
Now, like, really good being back traveling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I know you love to travel, dude. So that first Fiji weather was good. So, and you said no issues traveling, huh?
Yeah, we picked. Yeah, I was looking at the time because it's always going to be hot and humid, but in end of May it was less hot and humid. Yeah, the only challenge was back then was every month the travel requirements were changing. So, I think I booked that trip in February, and back in February, you had to have a test to leave the country, and you had to download an app, and everywhere you went in Fiji, there was a QR code, so they could track you. And then, by the time we got there in May, all of that had been abandoned. Everywhere still had the QR code, but no one was using it. You still had to get a test within 48 hours of arrival, and then 24 hours before you left. But where we stayed did it, and it was like the most luxurious test you ever got. You're right on the beach, waves are coming in. It's like I could live with this. If we get stuck here because we're positive, I could accept this.
Yeah. 2 weeks quarantine in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, break my heart. Right. That's awesome. And then how long did you stay in Fiji?
Oh, we were just there for a week. Like I said, yeah, I snuck it in between, sessions, and then I taught the June summer session, and then we headed off to Europe in July. Did 4 countries on our own.
Now, you said you were going on the sabbatical. Last time I talked to you, you applied for it and all that. Did you get it?
Yes. Yeah, so I got it. And so we decided, that kind of determined what we would do in the fall, or I'm sorry, the winter break. And then what we would do, knowing, I had 6 months off, so we could sneak in a few trips. So yeah, no, I was very fortunate to get it, and so it's my second time getting it. At my college, you're eligible every 7 years, so I got one back in 2014, and then I was eligible again in 2021, but what was the point? Couldn't go anywhere, so I waited till 2022. Thankfully, it worked out.
Now, when you say your school is eligible every 7 years, is there a certain amount that they get? Like, do they have like force? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we have 2 colleges in my district, so basically they give 2 per year per college. So mine gets 2, the other college gets 2, and then you can either apply for a whole year or for 6 months. But most of us do 6 months, because with 6 months it's full pay versus a whole year it's half pay. So can't live on the half pay, so I do the 6 months. And I pick the spring because sometimes, like last time I did it, I based it around wanting to see cherry blossom season in Japan, which, can only do that in the spring. And then same thing, there's a couple places we wanted to go. Spring was a really good time, so I'll apply in the spring. Though I could have, you could also do fall.
Right. So what are the requirements? So now you're sabbatical. I believe most people know what a sabbatical is, but that's when you apply for absence of your job for, again, like you just said, 6 months. Now, is there requirements that you need to handle within those 6 months?
Yeah, basically in the application, you have to explain, there's like 5 main questions. You've got to work on some sort of project that has objectives, will have some benefit to the college or to the district. And then, after you work on that during the sabbatical, and then after you return, so I think it's like October, you submit your final results to the board of trustees at a board meeting. So basically I outline, these are the things I'm going to research. these are the objectives I'm hoping to, answer. And so, yeah, so basically you do the work in the spring. You can either finish it all in the spring, or you can gather all your information, work on it over the summer. Like I said, and then in October, you make the presentation to the board. So yeah, it's a competitive process, but also, a lot of people don't apply for it because it's not like just it's a 6-month vacation. You actually do have to do some work and, present your findings.
Okay, so let me recap. I think I got this. So you apply for it, you get it. So the 6 months you're gone, you do the research and you collect all your data and information.
Right.
And then you have a period of time when you're back at work to put all that together to present it to the board.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what I did, so last sabbatical, we went a little nuts. We spent 3 months traveling through Asia, which was incredible. This time decided we would do 2 trips. So we did one in February, which was to Ecuador, and we did one in April, which was to Turkey. But that left me time in between. I could do some research, and then now I'm teaching the June summer session like I normally do, getting ready to travel again in July. This time, okay, here's what I've gathered, here's the information, put it together in a presentation that I know will go to the board in October.
And then the information that you're going to present to the board in October, you've already presented what you're going to present. So you say, this is what I'm going to work on for the 6 months, and I'll see you in a year with my final project.
Yes. Yeah. So, excuse me. They already know what I'm going to work on. They already know my objectives and what the questions I'm going to answer. So in knowing that, they can kind of prepare. So when I do come to the board, the 4 of us who got sabbaticals will each present maybe 15 minutes, but they've had a chance they know going in what my questions were. They can look over, because anytime you meet with the board, you submit things like 3 weeks in advance. So they've also had a chance to look it over and then, hopefully hit you with questions related to it. Though I have in previous board meetings been hit with questions that were just sort of out of the blue. Okay.
Now, all right. So I have 2 questions. One, what are you working on? What's your subject or your title, or what would you call it that is the topic of your sabbatical?
Well, I teach mathematics, and here in California, we passed a law. It's called AB 705 a couple of years ago, actually. And basically what it said, so the challenge we've always had is most of our students assess into pre-collegiate math and English. And it can take up to 2 years for them. There's like 4 math classes they have to take before they finally get to the math class that they need to get a degree or to transfer.
Okay.
And so basically the state of California just said, nope, that's, we shouldn't have college professors teaching arithmetic. There's got to be a better way. So they passed this law that basically says any student coming to the college can now be placed immediately into a college level math class. And in fact, my college and most colleges have no longer offering the remedial courses. No beginning algebra, no intermediate algebra. But the problem is, every college is doing it differently. While we're getting more students into college algebra and statistics, those are the 2 main classes, the success rate has actually gone down some. Because we have some students who really need some remediation. They really need help. So all the colleges have been trying to figure out different ways. So basically my sabbatical was to look at some colleges throughout the state and at the general state, and just to kind of see, are there patterns? Are there things we can look at? Are there other colleges where the success rates have actually gone up? Are there colleges, my college offers a co-requisite, which means as you take this class, you take this other support class. Are the colleges doing that? Are they doing, sometimes they have what's called a math boot camp. So for like 5 intense weeks in the summer, you come in, we cover all the basics, fractions, decimals, percents. get you all ready, and then you take the class. So basically, what are some of these other colleges doing? Is there something we can learn from? Because it's at a certain point, even within my district, the two colleges are doing things differently. So I'm in a position where I used to be the head of my department, and I used to be what's called an academic senate president. Every college in California has one. There was 113 of us back when I was senate president. So I have lots of contacts. I know lots of people. So I'm hoping, I was able to get to some data that normally isn't released. And just to see, each college, what are you doing? If you do offer a core requisite course, is it before the class? Is it after the class? Is it online? Is it in person? What are you doing to, we have these students who used to go into a basic skills class that are now in a collegial class. What are you doing to help those students? I'm just trying to see, is there any pattern to it? Is there anything, we could learn from that my college could change? Because since the state has got involved, there's another bill that's passed, which was AB 1705, which sort of impacts 705. So we haven't quite figured out 705, and then a new law came. So but it's just I've always been the type, like when I was math department chair, we were hit a lot with assessments in terms of trying to place students. I would meet with the English and reading departments and see what they thought about the assessment and what we could improve. I've always been one of those. I like to talk with other colleagues. I like to reach out to other colleges. So for me, it was something I would have done if I were chair during this time. Since I'm not, I figured I would use it as part of my sabbatical.
Oh, nice. I like it because since the law, how long did you say that the law 17?
The 705 took
705.
effect in 2018.
And then you're saying that,
and the new one takes effect in August.
Okay, so the one in 2018, you're saying that since that came in play, you were starting to see a decline in people coming to college at their level of, we'll stick to your side of it, math.
Yes, like I said, we're putting more students straight into college algebra. So most students either need college algebra or they need statistics. So previously, maybe 20% of our students assessed straight into those classes. Now 100% of the students go into those classes. And so because of that, we're seeing students that, they don't know how to round a decimal. Sure. I had one student who said, I don't understand what you say when the problem says simplify. And so I was like, okay. And so, to varying degrees, some students are ready to go. So it's just, it's been a question of trying to figure out how do we help these students without, slowing everything down. We still have, material we have to cover. And so it's just, like I said, there's just been each college is kind of approaching it differently, but we're all seeing the same impact. We're all seeing, okay, the overall success rate is going down. However, more students are passing because there's more students in the classes.
Oh, so because of the attendance being up, the % of people passing is going up.
Exactly. So, of the students attending, maybe we've dropped from 60% to 50% passing, but that 50% is more students. It works out strangely, but
I can follow. Yeah, I can follow that. Then now, when you say you're looking for contacts and seeing how other people do it, are you staying within California system?
Yeah. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at, so where I live within an hour, when it's about an hour's drive, there's probably 10 other colleges comparable to mine. So focus on those. And there's also a couple colleges in the state that were they knew this was coming. So 2016, 2017, they were already making changes and they've actually seen some increases. So what are they doing? And then also taking into account, though, they may be in a more affluent area, let's say, whereas
Right,
I'm not. So maybe they're doing some things that we can't do, or maybe they focused on more on student support, tutoring, also the assessment. You still could theoretically have a remedial course. My college just decided to get rid of them altogether. The law actually does allow you can still have one class before college level. So is anybody still doing that? Things like that.
Yeah. So what, in your opinion, what would be the purpose of that law being passed?
Well, basically they're looking at it from because to give you a little history, when I very first started teaching full-time was 2005. And at that point, the state was focused on what was called the Basic Skills Initiative. And so let's put more time and effort and money into the remedial education. Because again, most students were taking remedial courses, but not enough were getting through to the college level.
Mm-hmm.
And so that lasted about 10 years. And then they didn't see the results they were hoping to see. So then they kind of flipped it and said, okay, we know math and English are the two subjects that stump all students. That's the stumbling block for them to get their degree or to transfer to a university. So what can we do to get more students in those courses so the more students will pass? And so the focus is on that now. And, the challenge is, having done, I've been a college professor for half my life. And, when I taught the remedial courses, yes, there were some students in there who just needed a refresher on fractions. But there were some other students who honestly did not know how to add. I mean, it was, and so, I'm concerned because, like I said, the student who didn't know what I meant when I said simplify, I'm not going to be able to help you in a little extra hour a week, lab.
Right, sure.
So yeah, the intent is good. And, I don't know any colleague who doesn't want to see more students pass. And when I teach a class, I want all my students to pass. But, it's just figuring that out. So it's a little frustrating that it's gone to the state in terms of, laws have been passed now, because the state, they're not educators, and they don't know the system. So for instance, another law that was passed was they want all of the course numbering throughout California to be the same. So if college algebra at my college is Math 102, it should be Math 102 throughout the state. And that's not a bad idea. But I can tell you, when I was Senate president, I tried to do that with my sister college. And the amount of grief and effort and frustration that went into that. And I'm like, that was just 2 colleges. We have 115 throughout the state of California. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Now so I like what you're doing. It's California, dude. And I hear all sorts of crazy shit about California, but let me ask you
I can tell you, I have been speaking with some colleagues across the country of Florida, Texas, Utah. It's happening throughout the country. Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking, okay, this is just crazy California. This is government overreach. Nope.
Nope. Now, do you see, so when did you start being a college professor? What year?
Well, I was hired full-time in 2005, but I actually started in 1997 as a part-timer.
Okay. So
straight out of grad school.
Awesome. And it's been math the whole time?
Yes.
So from 2005 till current, well, damn dude, that's a long stretch. Let's say from 2010 till 20, what was your experience with attendance? Did you see a drop or an add?
It ebbs and flows. We're going through a drop now, and we were seeing it pre-COVID, so it's not just 2020. Right. But there have been ebbs and flows throughout that time. So we're slowly starting to see an increase. part of the problem, for me or for my department has been, okay, 80% of our classes were pre-collegial, now they're not. How many courses, how many college algebra, how many statistics do we offer? What format do we offer? That's always a challenge. But it's just you never know. It is on the rise, but I've been told throughout the whole state there's a decline. So just you have to live with that.
Now, do you think that's because of everybody leaving? Do you think that has something to do with the decline of attendance? I mean,
it's a number of things. I mean, fiscally, what tends to happen is when things are doing better, we tend to see enrollments drop, versus when things financially aren't as good, we see more students because they're trying to get a degree or a certificate. I've had students who just they'll get a raise at their job if they attend X number of hours in some college courses. So it really varies. I do think one of the things I never liked at my college, and I'm sure it's every college, is the focus is always on number of students. How do we get it to increase?
Well, it's a business.
It's a business model, versus I'm like, how do we improve education for the students we have? Because part of the reason when our numbers are high, part of the reason is those students have been here longer than they should have been. So, I want to get them in and out. Like I said, I want every student to succeed in my class. So, please, if you're my student and something's coming up, let me know. In fact, just before we started talking, I was checking my work email for the last time, and I had a student email me who's been struggling with math, and so I helped her out, and she got thrilled. She got like 100% on her first test, and now she's like, the new chapter doesn't open till the 19th, but she's finished the current chapter. Could I please open it for her? Because she's doing really well, and she's got some like medical procedure happening on the 19th. Hey, no problem. I mean,
that's awesome.
After we talk, I'll go open it up for her if she's willing. I've had students. I'm giving birth like the last week of class. Could I do work early? Absolutely.
Yeah. So we in the conversation of college and further education, I didn't go to college. My wife graduated from Fordham, from New York, and I went right into the workforce. I've been basically blue collar. I had a white collar job for a long time, but and we met with some financial advisors. We got the house. We're trying to get everything settled in. Okay, so legacy time, right? Trying to build,
right.
Want to build legacy for my son and all that. And the financial advisor's like, okay, college fund, and I go, and she kind of looks at me, and I go, I know there's options out there for not just a trust, but something I can put money into in case that he doesn't want to go to a college.
Right.
Maybe he wants to be, have a, what's the example I used? I go, maybe he wants to be an intern over in Europe for a year. Maybe he wants to buy a business. Maybe he wants to, start a plumbing business or something. That's what I want to have money for him to do. Sure. Okay. All of a sudden he says, no, I want to go to this college. Cool. We have that money, okay, cool. That's what that money's going to. But when I found out that when you put it in, and I'm sorry, I forgot the exact name of the file or the deal, but when you put it in an actual college fund, if it has to go to a college, and I'm like, I don't want to lock the money up and force him to go to school if that's not the direction that he wants to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in talking to people, they share a lot of common agreement, kind of what I'm getting mixed up here, but what I think of like college, if you need a further education, like a doctor or a lawyer or accountant or something in your field, like scientist, that kind of thing, you need further education. Absolutely. But then I go, if you want to go to college and just to kind of get a degree because because now you can prove you can accomplish something. I don't know, man. I just sometimes I have a hard time with that. And then I talk to my wife. She loved her college experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, does she use her degree? No. You know, what she went to school for has nothing to do with what she's doing now.
Right.
But she's like, it got me in the real world and it gave me real world experiences and stuff. She goes, and I think people should know that. And I gave her a look. I go, well, I didn't go to college and I went into the real world. So, you know, so it's fun with my wife. It's really fun because she's super analytical and academic and stuff like that. And she does really well in her job and all that. And here I'm on the other side of it. So
well, I think it's, it's, I mean, my life's been spent in academia. I've always enjoyed it. Anybody who wants to further their education, absolutely. But, the other day we're in a town called Loma Linda, and we're known for our medical center, which is also a university. And so my wife is getting her haircut. I went by their bookstore just to browse around, and I was overhearing this conversation. And then later I read an article that was supporting the same thing, which was, at least here in California, we have a shortage of court reporters. And it doesn't require a degree. It's like 18 or 24 months of education, which can be done, hybrid, online, in person. The pay is $100,000 a year plus, flexible hours. I think that's great. And I think, especially with the rising costs of education, I think it's good to look at options and to look and see, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I didn't want to teach grade school. So that meant at least a master's degree. There you go. I don't have a choice. I can tell you when I got my bachelor's degree and people found out, I had a degree in mathematics. Oh, there was like 3 high schools that wanted to hire me right there on the spot. And like, no, I don't want grade school. But no, I think it's good to diversify. I think it's good, to look at what options there are. The college experience is great. I can tell you, I mean, one of the reasons I became an academic is, I really didn't enjoy middle school and high school. And my dad actually found out about this. It's called the California High School Proficiency Exam. So when I was 15, I took it, passed it. I now had what was equivalent to a high school diploma.
At 15.
At 15. I transferred to a college. I was accepted by a university, but they suggested I go to a community college because, I'd never taken college algebra, for instance. I was missing some basic stuff, and I just loved it. I liked, I didn't miss my first year. I didn't miss a class. You're treated like adults. There were a lot of independent work and study. I'm like, okay, I found my home. This is a great place.
That's all, yeah.
But that's what worked for me. I know some people, aren't as excited by it, and hey, I got no problem with that.
Well, the thing is, man, it takes all type to make the world go round, right?
Absolutely.
I can feel your passion about it when you're talking. Like you loved it and you still love it, and that's what you like to do. Now, and some people will tell you, hey, man, that's not for me. Like me personally, right. That being an academic, I'd slip my wrist, dude. That's just not how I'm built.
Oh, understood. And I can tell you, like I said, I've been in various leadership roles in the first 15 years I was hired. So from 2000, I was hired full time in 2005. 2006, I became head of my department. So for 3 years, I led the largest department on my campus, and I wasn't tenured. In fact, when I got tenured, people were shocked. They're like, "But the things you say and do, you're fearless." I was like, I had a job no one else wanted. So, what are you going to do? Fight another chair? But, I did that. And then Senate president, that's a very political job. I was the liaison between the faculty and the management. I regularly met with the president and the chancellor. And then, I took on another role after that. And when 2020 hit, I realized, okay, I've done what I can do. I'm getting really tired of the politics. And now, the state's getting involved and they're passing laws. I'm just going to step back. I'm going to go, I'm only going to be a teacher. Yeah, I mean, don't disrespect to other teachers out there. I just mean, I'm giving up all these other things I do. I'm going to focus on my classroom. I'm going to, do what's best for my students. And I'm just not going to get involved. We have these discussions in my department about, they're going to work on some new project. And I know from my experience that like maybe 100 students will benefit from it. Fine. You guys knock yourselves out. I'm going to be over here prepping for my classes. And, because that's how I started out. I think if, math is a subject that a lot of people dislike, a lot of people have fear of, a lot of people have bad experiences. And I always wanted to come in with, I love this stuff. I taught a course years ago at a college. It was half arithmetic and half basically like dealing with math anxiety. And I remember I told that class, I said, I know some of you have had bad experiences, and you've had bad teachers, and you've had people tell you can't do it and things like that. I said, but that wasn't me. So, come along with me. Let's see how it works. And let's see. And that class, I was so happy because we ended like 2 weeks early. I covered all the material. And so I told them, I said, okay, we can either just be done now, or I can show you, we can start working on what would be the next class, the pre-algebra class. And every one of them wanted to see the pre-algebra.
That's cool. That's cool.
And that just made me feel so good. Okay.
Yeah.
We've gotten past that hurdle. So for me, I just want to focus on that. There's a younger generation coming in. They can deal with the politics and they can go to all the endless meetings.
Yep.
I just want to teach.
Good for you, dude. That's what I like to hear. And focus on what you'd like to do. Sure. I do the 80-20 thing, right? 80% of the time I just absolutely love what I do. 20% of the time I got to do what I got to do to get back to the 80%.
Oh yeah.
But if that starts to flip, and what it sounds like to me is that was starting to flip on you, where it's like 80% of the time you're doing a bunch of shit you don't want to do. And it's
I mean, what did it for me was, I'm one of those people, I like to look ahead. I like to see what's coming. So for instance, back in 2017, I was telling my department about AB 705. It wasn't passed yet. It wasn't a law, but it's coming. We need to prepare for it. And I was just basically laughed out of the room. Oh, that's never going to happen. They'll never do it. So I was working at the district, my position after Senate president. And I realized, some laws had changed. There was this annual report that we were supposed to be updating, but a couple of the things in there no longer made sense. We were supposed to be looking at data that the state doesn't collect anymore. It's not responsible for us to do anymore. So I went in, I had a big meeting, the chancellor, the college presidents said, hey, this is the situation. I'm gonna take this to all the committees. I'm gonna do some work. I'm gonna adjust it and make it look, focus on what we need to be focusing on. When the president said, oh God, this is great, people have never thought of this. And I took a year. I went to every committee. I went to the campuses. I collected all this data. I got everybody's approval. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to change it. It took me a year to do all this. And then I'm waiting for it to go to the board. And I look at the board book and it's not in there. And okay, that's weird. Maybe they, they got it late or something. Waited a month, still not in the board book. Okay, this is weird. So I reached out to the chancellor and he said, oh, no, I've decided to go in a different direction.
Jeez, I'm out of here.
And I was just like, okay, no, I'm going back to just focus on the classroom.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Well, the thing is, though, how do you make change? Like in my situation, I raised my son to the best of my ability. How do you change? How do you change things? Teach your students to the best of your ability, right? And get out of the politics. And hey, this is what direction you want to go. All right, let me get you the best of my ability, let me get you going in that direction. Right.
Yeah.
And
'Cause I also
think that's
realized,
great.
I was tired of doing everything by committee. So, in a classroom, I have the final say. And so, I think about it, I figure out how to present it, the order to present problems. If I run into an issue, I'm not, I have no problem seeing other professors, even other disciplines. Uh, I remember once a class I've taught for years. One day I looked and the topic, I did these 3 examples, and I always did them in one particular order. And I got thinking, I wonder why I do that. I think it'd probably be better to start with that 3rd example. And so I went to class and I started with that 3rd example, and it was mass confusion. And I was like, okay, that's why I do it in the order I do it. Lesson learned,
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So the other question I have about sabbatical.
Mhm.
When somebody comes off the sabbatical, have they ever, that you know of, not done what they say they were going to do?
Not to my knowledge, though. I don't really keep up with it. Um, Basically, you sign a contract that says you'll do this work,
Oh,
and you will work for the district at least another year. So it's
I
like
see.
you went and left, found another job during your sabbatical. Uh, Now, to the level of what they did, I'm sure varies dramatically. But pretty much, I think everybody's done what they said. Though, keep in mind, I mean, I know 2 or 3 professors, their sabbatical was like working on their dissertation. They decided to go back to the university to get a doctorate. So there wasn't, the work they were doing was work they were going to do regardless. Uh, Versus, I'm working on a project that's above and beyond.
Right.
I mean, it's a valid topic. I'm not knocking them. I wish I had thought of it when I did it, but
Well, that goes into my next question. So, how many hours? It'll probably vary, but roughly, how many hours a week would you put into that project while you're on a sabbatical? Does that turn into a full-time job, or do you say, okay, I'm gonna put X amount of hours each week? You kind of reverse engineer it. This project's going to take 500 hours, so I need to break it down.
yeah. I mean, the reason you're paid a full salary is it's supposed to be, basically this is your full time job for the next 6 months. Um, for me, it was fortunate in that I'm already a very analytical person, gathering data, doing statistical analysis. That's what I teach. And like I said, being a former department chair and a former Senate president, I have lots of contacts. I even used to have contacts in Sacramento. I could contact people who do work in the research office up there. So, for the state. So for me, it was a little less arduous. So yeah, so for me, it's a reverse engineering. It's like, okay, these are the topics I need to get data on. This is about how long I think it's going to take me. I'm going to be away this amount of time for my traveling. So that leaves me, X number of weeks.
Sure.
Divide it out.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of reverse engineer. It makes it very efficient to get things done.
Absolutely. It gives you minimums, and sometimes you have a really good week, and so now you're working ahead, and that you feel really good. You can back off a little later if you need to.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan. Like math to me, I mean, it's a given. You got to do it, especially if you're in business, right? You got to understand some kind of math. But I was talking to a guy. I play a lot of cards, and I was talking to a guy at the table, and I said, "Well, this will be a L in my P&L sheet." And he looks at me. He's like, "A what?" And I go, "A P&L sheet, dude." He goes, "What the hell is that?" I go, "Profit and loss." I go, "You don't know what that is?" He goes, "No." I go, "What do you do for a living?" And he works for the state doing something, I go, "Okay." And he goes, and we got talking. I said, "Yeah, since 2008, I've had a P&L sheet for my poker game. So this $150 that I spent tonight's going to go in the L column." And he's like, "You've been keeping track of that since 2008? I go, "Numbers don't lie, dude.
Exactly.
2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. And that'll never change, allegedly." But you know what I'm saying? So
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I've been the past few years, I've mostly been teaching statistics, and I've really enjoyed it for that factor. You know, college algebra and above, you know, calculus, trigonometry. You know, if you're a STEM major, if you're going into science and engineering, it's beautiful. That's what you need to know. But all of the other majors, you know, especially, you know, business, econ, stats is so important. You know, and it's such a, I feel really good because I can draw from a wide range of subjects and topics when I'm, you know, and, you know, I remember years ago, our psychology chair was having a hard time because we have a stats class specifically for psychology majors, but she was having a hard time finding people to teach it because the minimum requirement, you know, to teach that class was, you know, so that you could teach any psychology class, and the psychology professors didn't want to teach it. And at the time, I find it really funny because we were only offered 3 sections of statistics in my department, versus now we're coming up on like 40 since the law changed. But to me, it's like, this is good because, you know, I love math, and, you know, my degrees are in theoretical math. So, you know, that's my first love. However, you know, my students are here because they need, it's a requirement, but also, you know, they want to know how do they apply it. And I feel so good because, you know, when I used to teach college algebra, I was like, you know, okay, I can show you some basic things, but the really cool applications, you know, like, you know, forensics, you need trig for that, you know, or you need calculus for that. Here it's like, no, you know, bring me in a study, or let's talk about an election, or let's talk about a poll. You know, we can do all of that now. You know, we can even, you know, talk about politics without really getting into politics.
Right.
You know, why was this poll so off? Or, you know, what does that margin of error mean? Or was that sample too big or too small? Or, you know, we can discuss things like that. And I really enjoy that. It makes it feel like, okay, this has a much wider reaching application.
Oh, that is awesome, dude. I enjoy polls and stats like that as well, because it gives you a kind of a real world feel until you find how big the pool was. Like,
Right.
I don't need to go deep into it, but I'm like, that's really cool. And they're like, yeah, we polled 8 people. I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, fuck. Dude,
exactly.
I know more than 8 people. I can go and ask 8 people that same question, and then they're making a big deal out of like, oh my God, the majority say this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, goddamn, dude, the majority of fucking 8 is 5. So 5 people out of 8 say this. Come on. Now, if you said you polled, you know, 80,000.
Right.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking. You know, and what was the one that I found out? I think it was your kid. So obviously, you know, 2 years ago, my son was born, and then they go into that chart of, hey, here he is in the percentile of weight and height. Right. So then I find out that stat was designed back in like the 80s in Canada with like 15 kids.
And
I'm like, hey, I don't know. That's no good to me then.
Right.
You know what I mean? That you can't go off that. So, but I enjoy that. But nowadays, man, how do you determine if it's real or not? If it's a bunch of shit? Because like the standard joke is, you know, 8 out of 10 stats are made up, just like the one I just did. You know, so like, how do you get into what's facts and what's just somebody typing something up? And
yeah, I mean, one of the first things I try to teach them is, you know, sourcing. So, you know, where's this data coming from? Who did the study? You know, if you can find it. If you can't find it, done. Ignore it. You know, because any reputable study will tell you, you know, where it came from, how they did it.
Wait a minute, hold on. What did you just say? Because everybody needs to hear that again. Oh my
God! If you see some poll or some study out there and they don't tell you what their source was, you know,
move on.
Who did it? You know, how they did it. Move on. because I can guarantee you, every legitimate study is going to tell you that, it'll go to a level that you're going to turn your brain off, because I don't need to know the formulas and the functions they used, but they will give it to you. Because that's what I enjoy. I mean, I can teach them like sample size and how, if I want to do this study and I want this % of accuracy, what's the minimum sample size I need? Because right there will tell you, like you said. I mean, I was reading some report the other day, there was some medical study that didn't find any correlation between these two things. And then you read deeper, and it was, there was 15 people. That tells me nothing. To get any sort of accuracy, get the 95% that we normally are looking for, you need hundreds, if not thousands, of participants. So, that's one of the things to teach them. I also teach them, sometimes charts and graphs, they're meant to help you, but sometimes they're very misleading. So you've got to look at the scale. Because I got in trouble for that. I prepared a document for the board once. We have what's called the 50% rule here in California, which says that at least 50% of your annual budget and the district has to go towards instructional costs. So paying your teachers, supporting the classrooms, etc. And that number is normally just above 50%. 50.05, 50.1. So when I prepared the report, I had the raw data, but I also put in a chart, but I zoomed in because I figured it's always between 50 and 51%. But one of the board members called me out on that because he thought I was trying to make it look like it was much higher or much lower. And I was like, no, that was not my intent. So, okay, I'll just give you the full chart where basically it's a flat line, But, it can happen. And sometimes, I remember years ago, remember Ross Perot? I remember when he was running for president, that man loved his charts, but his axes never had markings. So it was like, it was showing like this huge increase or huge decrease, but it's like, relative to what? It may be totally legit. But, without knowing, are you doing what I did? Are you zooming in because you thought there was more detail? So things like that. It's just, look at your sources. And also sometimes just, apply some common sense. It's that old rule, if it sounds too good to be true,
I love it, dude. Apply some common sense. I did a one, because opposite weeks I do little short podcast, just me talking. And I did one because the whole AI and chat GPT and all that. Growing up, my parents would say, especially my mom, she would say, believe nothing you hear and half of what you see.
Right.
And this was 20, 30 years ago. She's telling me this, right? So now I'm like, you got to apply that to all the shit that you see on the internet.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I asked you about sourcing, and I love your comment, man. If somebody doesn't say, hey man, I did that. Right. I gave you that stat. I'm proud. I did that. You need to move on, dude. Erase that and move on. That's awesome. And so with stats, do you think, you said you like charts? So what comes to my mind is multiple sensory to a human. Do you think that's why, like the guy running for president using a chart, right? So he's kind of does a chart in a way dumb it down a little bit, so it gives you a visual if it has markings. I agree with you on that. I was going to comment on that too.
Well, no, I think it's, when I prepare reports, I tend to, here's the data, in a table, let's say, and then here's a graphic. And I do that because more people are going to lean towards the graphic. If I just present the data, the two things that happen is, one, I'll be asked, where's the graphic? And also, just the data, for some people, it can confuse them. They don't quite understand what they're seeing. Throw it in a graphic. Okay, now I see it. So I think it's, it's a combination of, a lot of people don't like math. They're scared of it. They don't like statistics. So, it can also just be a way of, okay, here's a user-friendly way. I remember, I was presenting this this report to the board once. Yeah, it was like 10 pages. And then one of the board members said, can you just put it on one page? And I remembered that. And so later I was working on a different project, and same thing. It was like, there was like 26 different things we were measuring and looking at. And, you know, so for every one of them, here's my raw data, here's the source of the data, here's a chart. But then I got thinking, and so for every one of them, I wrote a 1-sentence summary. And I told the chancellor, this is what you can tell the board. If they want to go into more detail, then you give them the chart. If they want to go more, you give, but you know, here's just my 1-sentence summary. Over the last year, this measure increased, or this measure decreased, or what have you. And again, it was all based on the data, but you're just trying to figure out what's the best way to present it to people.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're interested, then you can dig a little deeper.
See, and that's where I always thought a chart comes in, right? Because
absolutely,
because it's like a meme. A lot of information flies at you, and it's a visual. Like me, I'm more of a visual audio guy.
Right.
Like if you wrote that in a paragraph, 4 sentences in, my brain would probably fog out on you. But if you take that and put it in 1 sentence with a chart, right, I can understand that. But then there's guys like you that could read probably 4 or 5 pages with no problem and completely understand everything that's in there. And right? I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, I actually prefer the raw data and tables. But like I said, I understand the visual, you know, element of it, and I think that, you know, I mean, it's funny, when I was first, you know, I told you my degrees are in theoretical math. So the irony was, when I very first changed my major to math, I thought I was going to become a statistician. And then I discovered theoretical math. I really loved it. And then all these years later, I mostly teach statistics. So we've come full circle. But my main professor, when I was first teaching, so when you're doing theoretical math, there's a series of courses called analysis. And my main professor was Indian. He was trained in Cambridge, and he hated visuals. Everything had to be written out.
Oh,
and
wow.
So the funny thing about that was I became very good at writing what are called proofs, because, you know, I had to write everything out. But, you know, I kind of self-discovered some of the visual tools and things. You know, there's one I came up with to visualize sets, which are basically just different collections of objects. And I figured out this way to do it so that it made sense. And I got so excited, and I showed it to him, and he's like, oh yeah, that's called a Venn diagram. Yeah, they've been around for like 200 years. I'm like, well, I wouldn't know that because you wouldn't let me use them, you know. But I still sort of self-discovered them because, you know, there's times, it helps immensely, you know. And even then, you also start thinking about the colors you use, because, you know, you want it to be appealing, but you also don't want it to be misleading. So there's certain colors like red we, you know, associate with negatives.
Sure.
And green we associate with positives. So, you know, you have to think about things like that. But no, you know, to me, it's like when I stop. So I have a bachelor's and master's degree in mathematics, but my PhD is in education. And the reason I changed was I realized that, you know, when I finished my master's degree, I was heading down a road where it's like, you're going to publish a paper in a journal that maybe 12 people are going to read, because there's only like 12 people that majored in what you're studying. And, you know, that just didn't appeal to me. And so, you know, and I also realized I wanted to teach. So, you know, let me study some concepts of, okay, I have this knowledge. How do I apply this knowledge? Because, you know, I can tell you as a former department chair who interviewed a lot of potential adjunct professors, you know, there's a big difference between knowing the subject and explaining the subject. I used to dread interviewing engineers. No hatred to engineers, but they think very differently, you know. And I remember having this one guy do this demonstration to me, and I'm like, dude, I have advanced degrees in mathematics. I don't understand what you just did. How in the world is our student going to get there? So,
that being, and as soon as you said you got a PhD in education, my mind went right to, he's learning how to apply what he's learned.
mm-hmm.
That's where my mind went with that. And I got a funny story on that. I've been in sales my whole life, and I worked for Coca-Cola, and we had continuing education. So they would bring in these people, and we'd go through these studies, I guess. And the guy goes, I'm going to simplify it, but he goes, all right, you walk into Bob's Pizza and Jeff's there, and we have a sale on this. How would you approach it? And I go, well, shit, man, I got this. I do this every day. And I get up and I go, that's how you do it. He's like, oh, yeah. And everybody in the room's like, yeah. And the teacher goes, well, let's see what the answer is. Shows the answer. And it's like 4 paragraphs long, full of 6-syllable words. And I'm like, Jeff at Bob's Pizza don't want shit to do with all that verbiage.
Exactly.
And they're like, yeah, but this is how you're supposed to do it. I go, okay, you go and try that and see you tell me how that works out.
Yeah.
But the application of your knowledge is to me is reading the room, right? So if you can, I've been listening to you. We've been having a conversation for the last hour about fucking mathematics, dude.
Right.
I have no interest in mathematics except for in business, numbers, right?
Right.
But advanced mathematics, I have no interest in it. And I've been completely engaged in your conversation because, one, I can feel your passion for what you do. And I thought I got goosebumps on what I'm about to say is when you said, I'm going to recap this and you tell me if I'm correct.
Okay.
You were looking at when you were a chair, what I got out of it was, okay, how can I help my students? I'm going to go in this chair position. Maybe I can help them at a level that they won't see, but eventually it trickles down. I got tired of dealing with the politic bullshit. It's really not helping my students at a everyday level. Right. I go back to teaching now because my passion is to inform my students the best of my ability so they can take this knowledge and apply it to whatever they're passionate about. Have I recapped that correctly?
No, absolutely. Because like I said, I remember they made a decision at my college to reorganize the divisions. So, there's tons of departments, mathematics, English, philosophy, history, and they're broken into divisions. So there's usually things like science, social science, liberal arts, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And so they were merging basically it basically came down to money. A couple deans retired. Deans are who oversee the divisions. They didn't want to replace them. So instead, hey, let's merge a couple divisions. So they, so follow this logic. So they took math, which I'm in, removed us from science, and then merged us with they brought us in with computer science, which makes sense, accounting, so CIT, so how to use computers. They basically gave us everything from an old division except for economics, which I never understood why we didn't get economics.
Yeah, that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, economics went over to social science. That's fine. But then I remember we had this meeting for 2 hours trying to figure out what this new division should be called. And I remember telling them, I said, students don't give a shit what you call a division. They don't know what division math is part of. They just know, hey, I need to take this math class. I've heard this Gilbert guy's pretty good. Why are we spending this? Just call it alpha and omega. No one cares.
No. See, they need a name to put on the budget, on the line in the budget.
Right.
That's exactly what they need the name for. They don't give a shit. They need to make, it's like you said, college is a business, right? And to me, I was going down a black hole about college because of it's how it's been forced down everybody's neck. Like,
Right.
no matter what, you have to go to college. The fuck? What about a 2-year trade school and become a plumber and make $250,000 a year, and you don't even own your business? That's what you make as a fucking salary.
Right.
You know? So to hear you, to have this conversation with you, it's just awesome. It's refreshing to know that, and I know there's teachers out there and professors out there that love what they do, and they share the passion that you have, and they want to teach their students to set them up for success. Right? I mean, that's what. So it's just super refreshing to hear how much passion you got for your gig, man. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, no, I've always enjoyed it, and I feel very fortunate that I found a balance early. So when I'm teaching 100%, I'm fully there. When I'm on break, that's when I go travel. That's when I go do my other stuff. But to me, it's just like I've only recently have I kind of merged the two, or even talk about travel, or do like a book presentation on campus, because I've always sort of I like to keep it separate. But but I do think there's but I also see if someone likes my photography and they're interested in photography. I mean, I've visited some photography classes as like a guest photographer, and I remember one class afterwards the student emailed me and he said, that 1 hour I learned more than our whole class. And could you please help me on this and this? So to me, like I said, I'm one of those, I like to expand and go beyond. So yes, I'm a mathematical, I teach mathematics, but if you want to sit and talk travel, you want to talk photography, those are my other passions. And I sort of approach them in the same way. I like to do research, I like to study, I like to see, one of my big things is, if I see a photographer I really, really like their work, okay, let's look at it. What about their work is catching my eye? What do I like?
Right.
And is there something that they're doing that I'm not? That I don't want to copy, but maybe like you said with angles and composition, hey, I've noticed they shoot a little lower than I shoot, or they're doing some trick I hadn't thought of.
Sure.
And okay, I think next time I head out, I'm going to give that a try. Maybe that'll work. For some reason I guess because I started off shooting film. So I really use the viewfinder on my camera. I shoot everything through the viewfinder. And I've realized now with like the touch screen on the back, I see some people, they're holding the camera up and really low. It's like, oh yeah, I could do that. I don't have to lay flat on my stomach to shoot a low photo.
Yeah, dude, I like the old school though. But hey, speaking of, how you mentioned you kind of keep it separate with what you do for a living and your hobbies and travel. I had no idea what direction this conversation was going to go. I've truly enjoyed this conversation, but we're going to do as a part 2.
Okay.
Because we're at an hour now. I'm going to shut it down with you, and then we'll set up a time. We're going to record part 2, and then we'll talk about your travel and your photography, because I like to keep them right about an hour to 90 minutes. And I know we're going to fly over 90 minutes if we get if we get into your travel and stuff. And I don't want to brush over that, because I know you got a ton of stories. So, what we're going to do is we're going to shut it down now, and this is going to be end of part 1, and part 2 will be, when I set it up, part 2 will be right after it. But all right, buddy. Hang tight, but. Damn, dude, that was a lot of fun. Fucking mathematics. I know. All right, hold tight, man. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Man, I told you that was a good time. Now, I know we all know that fucking stats and charts get all manipulated all the time. But to actually hear somebody like that speak about it and break it down, fascinating. I had a great time. But Jeremiah's link is in the show notes. I bet you he would love to hear from you. All right, man, I'm going to get you out of here because I know you got shit to do. But don't forget, Live Rishi, High Speed Daddy, grow the show organically, tell a bunch of people about it, my website. And I'd like to close this out with a little fact from New Jersey, where I'm hailing you from. And Parsippany is one of the many towns in New Jersey, and it's For the last 24 years, it's been named Tree City, USA. Don't act cool, be cool. Till next time.